Hello and welcome back to another EDH deck tech idea. Today I'm talking about Greensleeves, Maro-Sorcerer. He's a 5 mana XX with protection from planeswalkers and from wizards. His power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a free green badger creature token. We are tending towards a typical mono-green stompy strategy, with some nice additions when it comes to the landfall mechanic. So we will flood the board with badger tokens by having a bunch of land drops and then swing for the win. Additional landfall cards that we are going to play are cards like Titania, Nature's Force. She's a 6 mana 6/6 and you may play forests from your graveyard. Whenever a forest enters the battlefield under your control, create a 5/3 green elemental creature token, and whenever an elemental dies, you may mill 3 cards. Rampaging Baloths, a 6 mana 6/6 with trample, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. We are not only going for big landfall triggers, we are also looking for that additional card advantage with cards like Tireless Tracker, a 3 mana 3/2, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you investigate. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a 1/1 counter on Tireless Tracker. Just as with Tireless Provisioner, a 3 mana 3/2, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a food token or treasure token. Avenger of Zendikar, a 7 mana 5/5, and when it enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each land you control. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a 1/1 counter on each plant creature you control. And of course we play Skewed Swarm, a 3 mana 1/1, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Skewed Swarm instead. We are in mono green, so we also have very powerful Carddraw with cards like Elemental Bond, a 3 mana enchantment, and whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This is extremely powerful when you have Greensleeves on the field, which turns every land drop due to the 3/3 green badger token into Carddraw. Tribute to the World Tree, a 3 mana enchantment, and whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card if its power is 3 or greater, otherwise put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So either we draw a bunch of cards due to the badger tokens, or we will also pump up our Skewed Swarm tokens. Shamanic Revelation, a 5 mana sorcery, and draw a card for each creature you control. You gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. Due to Greensleeve becoming very big at some point in the game, we also play Rishkar's Expertise, a 6 mana sorcery, and draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. You may cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Last March of the Ends, an 8 mana sorcery, this spell can't be countered, and draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control. Then put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Return of the Wildspeaker, a 5 mana instant, choose 1. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn, which can also be a great overrun effect in this deck. Not only do we want to bring out Greensleeves as fast as possible, we also want to profit from even more landfall triggers. So we also play cards like Skyshroud Claim, a 4 mana sorcery, search a library for up to 2 forest cards, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Reshape the Earth, a 9 mana sorcery, search a library for up to 10 land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Boundless Realms, a 7 mana sorcery, search a library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of lands you control, and put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Nature's Law for the early game, a 2 mana sorcery, search a library for a forest card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle, just as 3 visits. And then my favorite mono-green Ram spell, Traverse the Outlands, a 5 mana sorcery, search a library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Due to these very powerful Ram spells, we will have a lot of mana available, which we want to pump into a few very powerful X spells. For example, Green Sun's Zenith, 1 green and X sorcery, search your library for a green creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Shuffle Green Sun's Zenith into its honors library. Finale of Devastation, 2 mana and X, search a library and or graveyard for a creature card with mana value X or less and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it, and if X is 10 or more, creatures you control get +X and gain haste until end of turn. Genesis Wave, 3 green and X, reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of permanent cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Then put all cards revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. Green Sun's Twilight, 1 green and X, reveal the top X+1 cards of your library. Choose a creature card and or a land card from among them, put those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is 5 or more, instead put the chosen cards onto the battlefield or into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Chord of Calling, 3 green and X instant with Convoke, which is great for your just summoning sick badger tokens. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield and then shuffle. Ecological Appreciation, 3 mana and X sorcery. Search your library and graveyard for up to 4 creature cards with different names that each have mana value X or less and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards. Shuffle the chosen cards into your library and put the rest onto the battlefield. Exiled Ecological Appreciation. With a lot of these tutor effects, we want to hit our big overrun effects, like Endrace Forerunners, 8 mana 7/7 Vigilance, Trample and Haste, and when they enter the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Vigilance and Trample until end of turn. Cradle of Behemoth, 8 mana 5/5 with Haste, and when it enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain Trample and get +X/X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Zopandrel Hunger Dominus, a 7 mana 4/6 with Reach, and at the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. For 2 green Phyrexian and sacrificing 2 other creatures, put an indestructible counter on Zopandrel Hunger Dominus. You want to win more? You get it. Cultivator Colossus, a 7 mana XX trample, and its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. When it enters the battlefield, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you do, draw a card and repeat this process. Awaken the Woods, 2 green and X sorcery, create X 1/1 green forest dried land creature tokens. You can either use this one in the late game when you have a lot of mana available, or you can use it in the early game to accelerate your game plan, but most favorably you have Greensleeves out when you cast this spell. And last but not least, one of the most powerful overrun effects ever, Triumph of the Hordes, a 4 mana sorcery. Until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain Trample and Infect. Alright guys, these were a few cards that I would play in Greensleeves, Maro-Sorcerer. Let me know down in the comments below which cards you would add to the deck, which legendary creature I should feature next, and then I would say see you in the next one. Goodbye guys.